It is time to befriend our shadows. If you are dedicating yourself and really committed to your journey of healing and awakening, I want to share with you some of the most important details and aspects of our healing and awakening journeys. And it's our relation, our ability to relate to the shadows of our mind in particular, but also of our life, of our illness in our body, and in general, just our need to bring healing into our life as we realign towards that of our true nature, that of our great love and peace that we bring here as expressions of the divine. So I'm going to share with you, I've been very deep on my journey, traveling the world, on my own healing journey, really dedicated to this path of not only understanding and healing myself, but also supporting others who have, in some cases gone through some really deep moments and challenging times in their life that they're healing from. And recognizing that healing is that of the universal path that we're all on. In a sense, it's the purpose in which why we're here on earth is potentially to be closer with God, closer with Source, to understand the eyes, the perception of our higher selves, and bridging that down into our existence here of life on earth. So we're all participating, we're all actively needing to participate in order to rise above the current challenges that we face here on our planet. Okay, so the reason why I want to share this with you is because I see some common patterns within our culture, within ourselves, within our journeys, and that is our desire or ability to try and avoid the suffering, trying to avoid our shadows, and yet continuing to carry our shadows, our pain, our suffering with us and be affected by them while simultaneously trying to push them away, because we don't want to experience them. We want to experience, joy and love and all the success and abundance and all the things that we want in life. So naturally, we try to just jump directly towards the light rather than go through the shadows. So we may experience aspects of the light, the things that we want, and then, of course, we fall back down. And again, we may rise up again, but we're going to naturally fall back down and into the shadows unless we're actually able to transform these parts of ourselves. Okay, so firstly, when I speak about the shadows, what I'm referring to is the misperceptions of our mind, meaning that we have certain experiences, especially as children, or possibly in past lives as well, where we have endured things, experienced things, and not be able to understand them from a higher perspective of love and of trust. So we receive them and experience them often like victims, and we then hold on to those painful experiences, and sometimes they can be very minimal, but generally speaking, we all typically lacked the deep nurturing love that we require as humans when we came into this world, because of where we're at in our evolutionary journey as humans. We have gotten away from this importance of understanding how sensitive we are as human beings and what our core needs are to feel safe, to feel loved and appreciated. As we've been brought into this world, often forced to grow up and put into the schooling system, for example, in ways that were doing the opposite and putting us in environments that weren't necessarily fully safe in many ways, and experiencing the suppression of our soul's expressions and our ability to express our voices. And so there's many things that we can look at culturally in the ways that we have gone into our suffering. But now we want to look at and feel into what we've experienced in the present moments in terms of our misperceptions of our mind. So we may be wanting to take action in our life, and yet we're perceiving things with a negative view rather than that of trust and joy and freedom and love and abundance. We're really maybe having limiting thoughts which limit our experience, or we have these fears and doubts to do things, so we stop ourselves from doing them. And beneath this, there tends to be, varying stories that often relate to just our own ability to love ourselves and to understand how perfect we are within the eyes of creation or creator, of God. So we carry many misperceptions, and in many cases, our parents may have placed some of those misperceptions onto us of their own, and how they supported us or didn't support us may have impacted how we see ourselves and how we see life around us. So these patterns of thoughts, these stories that we often loop through our minds, are often playing out, and so much that we can't be aware of them until we start to really pay close attention. So our ongoing thoughts, we can notice how distorted our perception can be, and even more so how they affect our decisions and our actions on a daily basis. So we want to heal our thoughts, but we also want to heal our hearts, because emotionally maybe we've been hurt in the past, and sometimes not even aware of how deeply something hurt us. Could be, again, something very small that touched us very deeply, and we still carry this pain, so we still have it in our hearts, in our energy body, but also in our physical bodies. So, another good example, if we experience a lot of violence, or we weren't in a safe environment, then we carry this tension maybe in our bodies that we stored up over time, and it built up possibly, and then we tend to disconnect from these parts within our physical bodies. So we don't even become aware of this discomfort because we've been carrying it for so long, and it's just become so disconnected. So part of the healing in the physical, again, is to befriend this part of ourself. If we have some discomforts or parts that we've disconnected from, we need to reconnect with the body. We need to reconnect with these parts and welcome them with love and appreciation, and understand what is our body saying to us. How do we really bring love into this part of ourself and light to heal and restore harmony within our bodies. Okay, so these are the main components of healing. And of course, if we're healing our bodies, we're healing our hearts, our emotions, and we're healing our thoughts furthermore to understand the perfection of life, then we are of course restoring our spiritual health, our connection to spirit, our ability to commune with that of spirit, with that of source, and everything that exists, including all aspects of nature. Like every plant, every tree, we have the ability to communicate as we are in communion with everything that surrounds us. So this healing process is awakening us not only to the truth of our existence, but the power that we hold as humans, as we have this magnificent ability and capacity to love, to bring love into this world, to create magic, and to really create a life. As we see, life here is co-created. So if one individual is creating a life, another individual, we're all interconnected, and ideally more and more we're creating a life that's actually in harmony with nature and supporting our well-being and our highest good. And so if we're able to then transition our life furthermore in alignment with what is serving us, then we're able to extend that to the next generation, and they're having a more solid foundation to arrive in peace and harmony, and from there be able to continue to rise higher. So here we're having to take really big steps, literally from darkness and into the light, because we're recognizing that the systems in place and the many ways that have become normal ways of eating, ways of living, ways of spending your time, ways of putting things into your body, onto your body, that a lot of it is quite destructive. Actually, it's quite toxic, and it's destroying us as humans, destroying our planet. So these are good examples of how what is normal is actually working against us. It's working against our nature. So we're having to really realign and shift in many ways how we're living towards harmony with nature, towards our health, towards our well-being. And from there, we see everything changes so quickly. And, you know, it's supporting our ability to further transcend and heal our thoughts and any type of illness that we're going through. In particular, our distrust, you know, that has become quite normal. This is the main sickness, is that we've lost trust in ourselves and one another and within life itself, within Creator. So we're having to restore trust, and this is what it means to further heal, is to recognize how the universe supports us with love. And as we give back, as we bring love into this universe, the more love we bring, the more we receive back. So it's like restoring and returning back to the natural order, the natural ways of life, and seeing naturally that we are in harmony, that we are healthy beings here, created in the physical with the capacity to bring in light, like we are channels of the divine and stewards and children of God and servants of the Most High. So, you know, we are so powerful, and yet subtly so sensitive, so vulnerable. So we need to honor our sensitivities. Furthermore, we need to understand our needs as humans at the core, as being emotional beings, spiritual beings, not just physical beings lost in a material world. We're having to really shift to find balance into all these aspects and to really honor ourselves. So, more importantly, is to understand that our shadows are not working against us. We cannot avoid them, but we need to pass through them. We need to befriend these parts within our body that are maybe in pain, welcome them with love. And our thoughts, we need to see, wow, what is this? What is that? Why do I feel like this? Why do I always think like this? Why do I tell myself this? And being willing to go deeper into it rather than just touch it and try to avoid it. So it's more like understanding a thought that we become aware of, and with curiosity and patience and compassion, able to welcome it and say, wow, where does this thought come from? Like, have I always thought like this? And then tracing it back maybe to its starting point and seeing, wow, ever since a child, I always thought everyone was against me. And now I recognize, they're not against me. So this is just one example that maybe of a story you've created as a child. And as we go into it, as we explore it, we bring it into the light of our awareness and recognize, is this actually true, or is this just my perception of the experience? And then we can see throughout our life that playing out with that misperception, and how we've misperceived so many steps along the way potentially, and therefore suffered so much because of it. So we're welcoming the thoughts, we're understanding them and bringing them to the light and realizing, shit, like this is a story that I don't have to carry anymore, and I can release it here and now, and I can love this part of myself. I can bring this love into this part. And so we can therefore release it. So in a way, we can't avoid the shadows, but we can only pass through. And if you can envision a tunnel of darkness with a light at the other end, we are constantly being asked to pass through this tunnel And so it's an invitation and an opportunity, a portal to pass through in your process of healing, transformation, of awakening and ascension. So our shadows are supporting us, and they are currently being brought to the surface. Our shadows of fear, doubt, and distrust are being brought to the surface. And, we can stress about everything in life if we're not able to transform them. Maybe we're recognizing the fear of the unknown of our future. And so it's coming up for us, and we can either transform it, transcend it, and deepen our capacity to trust and live in faith, or we can stress about it so much that we become further sick. Maybe we can't sleep at night, maybe we can't eat, and then things get worse and worse and worse. So we can fall into our shadows. And of course, this is always our greatest fear when wanting to touch our shadows, is to recognize our capacity to bring love and light and trust in this process, to go into them and to explore them, to feel them, to understand them, and to release them. So it is a deep, deep process that we're being asked to do. And we're not given so much the chance to avoid them anymore. And, we can turn to many mechanisms of avoidance, whether it's, social media, scrolling through videos and getting lost there and avoiding our thoughts and our feelings. It can be watching television, movies. It could be, certain substances that we might be drawn to and um, depending upon more and more. Alcohol. There's so many different ways to distract ourselves to avoid feeling what we're feeling. And of course, if we avoid them, these things build up and get worse and worse. We try to avoid our problems in life, and they don't just go away. Typically, they tend to get worse if they're actual problems. In some cases, they're not even real problems. We just create them in our mind and are judging everything like it's a problem because we're unable to trust in the process of life. We're unable to be in faith. And this is a problem of its own. So if we're constantly worrying and creating these problems for ourselves, then we need to really look at this pattern itself and the suffering that we're creating for ourselves and projecting that out onto other people. So may we come to really embrace our shadows and recognize as humans that we all have them, otherwise we wouldn't be here on earth. And being here on earth and working through our shadows as individuals is helping the collective work through their shadows. And the more we allow ourselves to feel what we're feeling and allow ourselves to feel what the collective is feeling, what others are feeling, then we are participating with bringing it all into the light, to bring it into this process of transformation, rather than continuing to get worse and worse. We can see, wow, this is time for change. What is life asking of us? What is life supporting us to do? And so we're approaching more and more with faith in every experience we have, rather than distrust, rather than reacting out of fear to our circumstances. We're able to consciously respond and recognize what is working, what isn't working, and either develop solutions or allow the solutions to come to us, and to trust in this process. So it really is right now asking all of us here in life. Life is really demanding, teaching us to become our own masters, our own gurus, and to restore this level of trust within us that has been broken for many generations or been breaking down, and disconnecting us from our true nature, our connection to source, our connection to creator, which also has included our disconnection and the separation from the land and from one another as families. So may we come back to this way to honor our family, this planet, and all of life, because we are love You are love and you are magic.